This party's getting crazy.
I want to start this off by saying that I identify as a 90s kid. It's something that a lot of us who grew up on the internet's development can lay claim to, and oftentimes we get those twinges of nostalgia when we see some stuff from our younger years pop up.
Hey there, everyone! My name's...
And sometimes that sort of thing can lead to some conflicting emotions. And we'll cling to that until we die.
My name's Dan, from Grim Reaper Gutters. I won't leave until I make a sale.
And now that I've waxed on about a minute for how about we're all gonna die, let's talk about Animaniacs.
Huh? Who's this loser?
I'm aware that I'm giving away that I'm an old coot by saying that I grew up with shows like the original Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain, and Freakazoid.
We were just wondering, who's your favorite?
Who are you people?
But screw it! Nostalgia's a terrible beast and 2020's almost over. Might as well have some sort of fun, am I right?
No!
Quick aside though, I will be spoiling things about the show, not that the show has an ongoing plot to it, but as a show that's based on comedy and gags, it's better to see them from a first-hand perspective and go in with a fresh mind to come to your own conclusions about the jokes, execution of said jokes, and showing whatever changes there are in the show from the original. So this is the only time you're going to get, if you don't want to see me voice whatever criticism and praises I have of the show, now's your only chance to click off the video. Not that I don't have any other videos you couldn't go enjoy, go take a look around, I'm sure there's something that you will find that you can laugh and point fun at. So, these losers gone? Good, I hate those people. So, if you're somehow not familiar with Animaniacs, it's a reboot of the original 90s show with the same name, with a hyper-focus on the Warner Brothers,
And the Warner sister died.
as well as Pinky and the Brain.
Gee, Brain, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
And that's where we're going directly into the negatives right now. I know, it's a bit of a record to get to the negatives this quick in a review, but this is a big one. You see, one of the greatest strengths of the original show was due to its format setup. What do I mean by that? Animaniacs Original had a lot more characters, a lot more series within it, and essentially one could even say that Animaniacs was the animated equivalent of a variety show, stuff like Saturday Night Live.
I left my goggles there, Patricia.
Oh, okay. Come on. Oh, no!
Well, with a large cast of characters, the spoofs of different forms of media, the obvious satire, Animaniacs was the way to get kids interested in this sort of format because unless you watched all the episodes like a maniac in one afternoon, you didn't know what you were going to get in the show. You'd get the Warners and their antics, you get Slappy Squirrel, Rita and Runt, the Good Feathers, Minerva Mink.
Would you do me a favor?
And people wonder why there are so many furries running around nowadays. It offered variety, and if there was a segment in the show that you didn't like, it was at least the entire show that didn't take up too much of your time, and you had other segments that you could potentially enjoy. I personally enjoyed Good Idea, Bad Idea.
Bad idea. Playing the accordion anywhere else.
The 2020 reboot, or continuation, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't really have that. For the most part, we follow the Warner siblings and Pinky and the Brain, with a handful of segments that are just random at points, like the gnome that lives in people's mouths.
Turning him into an angry gnome. The creature is driven by rage and must now live in people's mouths.
What the hell is this?
Or the gray alien that's being used as a ragdoll by a little girl. Like, I do not know who these characters are, and for a series that is actively banking on the nostalgia of its audience in order to succeed,
Maybe something reminiscent of the first season,
But modern to show that we're not your dad's Animaniacs.
but not so modern that you'll alienate the dads because they're a key part of our demographic.
it's kind of a weird curveball to throw at people. I did see a video from a guy named Akeem Lanasan, I hope I am pronouncing that correctly, and if I don't, I'm sorry, who proposed the idea for why these characters are no longer in it. He proposes that it's due to the fact that they're based off old films and novels, and as such, the references will be lost into newer audiences. And while that is an interesting theory, it's one I heavily disagree with, mainly due to the fact that most kids who watch the original Animaniacs won't even know the existence of Goodfellas or of Mice of Men. Sure, the characters may have been based on those pieces of media, but it didn't really rely on the source material for their entertainment. Also, and this is me being pedantic as all hell, but I don't remember George or Lenny of Mice and Men breaking into musical numbers and tugging at my heartstrings as such.
Humans ain't what they seem to be.
No, permission not granted.
Now, there is another argument that he makes, that some of the previous depiction of characters in the 90s wouldn't fly in today's standards. And yeah, I can see that, especially in today's hyper-PC culture. Like, Hello Nurse was actually objectified by the Warner Brothers multiple times. There's stuff like the Italian stereotypes and how it's assumed that Runt has mental issues. And sometimes they can get under people's skins, and once you have that happen, you're gonna get a whole bunch of people clamoring like, "This is a bad depiction of insert..." Whatever.
Oh no, somebody's going to get an email.
And I can see why that is part of the reason why Hello Nurse isn't in the cast. Back in the original show, she was extremely objectified by Yakko and Wacko. It's essentially what gave them their catchphrase.
Hello, nurse.
Although, I would like to point out that Dot was also just as bad at objectifying men, even more so.
He's looking at you, kid.
Hello, nurse.
Huh?
Personally, I'm not bothered by that sort of thing, but I can see how in today's overly PC culture that this can be seen as offensive to people. I do think this sort of thing, though, the lack of a diverse cast of characters and skits does hurt the show to a big degree. And frankly, considering the fact that I don't really care for this choice, and how drastic it is, it really hurts the show a lot, and actually negatively impacted my opinion on it.
What a load of bullshit!
While I do understand the reason for removing a majority of the cast, that doesn't mean I don't think it's a good idea to just focus on the Warner siblings and Pinky and the Brain for the most part of the show, even if I did like some of their actual jokes and stuff. In fact, what they did with the characters is basically regulate them to a single episode where hardly any of them get a single speaking line.
That's it? Where's the meat?
And it's all because of Chicken Boo. Like, this is really, really disrespectful to the original source material, especially to all these characters who have probably tugged the heartstrings of a lot of members of your audience.
What a load of bullshit!
I just find it really a bad choice in this point of the game. Yeah, I mean, we do get Dr. Scratch and Sniff at the end of the whole series, but that's just really paltry in my opinion. It also drags on the entire show since we're hyper-focusing on just a cast of 5 at this point. And it's especially noticeable when you consider that the Warner siblings make a lot of reboot jokes.
I feel like we've been here before.
Yeah, well, that's how we make television in 2020. Reboot!
And hey, I can get that it's a big thing, a big deal, that you're bringing back a show that came from the 90s. And I will expect those kinds of jokes.
Here's your check for the Animaniacs reboot, you sellouts.
All you care about is lining your own pockets.
But at times, these jokes do get tiresome, especially for a show that's supposed to be based upon spoofing other forms of media, political figures, or just being goofy for the sake of being goofy. That isn't to say that the jokes and gags aren't funny. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't.
Isn't based on a shared desire to conquer the world, but rather my enabling of your systematic emotional and physical abuse.
Quiet, you nincompoop.
Righto, I deserve that.
Not a joke, but an incredible simulation.
I will point out that the animation for this is buttery smooth, especially when they mess with our art styles. I think the thumbnail gave it away, but my favorite scene is the anime spoof when the characters basically looking like they were drawn by Studio Trigger.
Yakko Water! Yak Attack!
The animation is really well done, and you won't hear me complaining about it because it's really solid and they do a lot with the art styles and experimentation here. It's colorful, it's vibrant, there's a lot of life coming from the characters, even though there are some disgusting moments, but... Hey. And it's also extended to the voice acting, especially considering that the show did get a number of the original voice actors to reprise their roles. But getting back to the actual point of my jokes, there are some jokes that are really off-putting. Like, you can actually tell there's a bit of a left-leaning agenda in here, especially with the political jokes. However, I don't take too much issue with them because Animaniacs has always been known to make fun of politicians in their series, especially when you consider that Bill Clinton was a constant butt of jokes in the original.
Well, if you have a spare bedroom at home, you might try renting it out. Hey, did I say something wrong again? Uh-oh, Hillary's gonna whoop me for sure.
So despite there being Trump jokes and Russian jokes, they don't really bug me. Although I do find it a little bit hilarious that they're willing to do that depiction of Russia in one episode.
Who is greatest leader in the world?
See?
Pretty much making into a poor country. Oh my god.
Hidden cameras, stolen scripts. The Russians have been spying on us.
Hey, this is America. Only the NSA is allowed to do that.
Better hope the Russians don't actually see that. Anyway, I don't really take too much offense to that, and it doesn't really bug me, because that's something I expect from the series. No, it's that some of the jokes are pretty in poor taste. And to be fair, this was made back in 2018. Even the show itself states it, and the show is making reference to a stupid song, Johnny, Johnny, Yes Papa. But considering the recent events around Johnny Depp, as well as the case around him being let go, I do not blame the internet for flying off the handle after seeing this, especially since a lot of people don't seem to understand what the actual reference is. Whatever your stance is on the Depp case, it can be seen as really ill-timed and tone-deaf joke done in essentially a kid's show. But hey, that's just me, and apparently a lot of people who are too angry on the internet to actually give a rat's ass about looking into context.
Fuck this 24/7 internet spew of trivia and celebrity bullshit!
I still don't blame people for getting mad about it, but at the same time, oh my god. There are also some really odd choices, like having an entire segment that is framed around manspreading. I mean, I don't really have an issue with people making jokes around this sort of stuff, but the issue comes when the show really dates itself. I've made it known before in some of my videos that references in comedy can be detrimental.
Whoa, Pokemon Go has gotten really fucking good.
How do you do, fellow kids?
But the same thing can be done when it comes to social issues, and even to an extent, Trump. Because let's face it, in a few years, no one's going to be wondering what the hell Trump's up to, especially since he lost to Biden. It dates comedy, and in all honesty, I can see the joke working, and on a second watch through, it didn't bug me as much, but it still left a sour taste in my mouth that still ran with me when I was watching the series again, just to get a full grasp of it. I can even say this about the same thing about my favorite episode in this entire series, the Halloween episode, because while I did enjoy the spoof of Stephen King's It, as well as the Frankenstein parody, especially when you have Pennywise stand in, getting basically freaked out by the Warner siblings. While it is enjoyable to see this sort of thing, an It joke in 2020 is kind of late, but it's due to the execution and what it's based on, and I think that why it works, but still has issues with it, especially considering it's the entire framework of the entire segment. The mansplaining skit is based off a problem that some people would consider to be a non-issue, myself included. Meanwhile, the Halloween episode focused more on film, and even people who haven't seen the film can go, oh, it's that evil clown movie parody. And you don't have to worry about having a polarized audience.
Maybe something reminiscent of the first season?
But modern to show that we're not your dad's Animaniacs.
But not so modern that you'll alienate the dads because they're a key part of our demographic.
That's just me, though, in my perspective, because unlike what some people tend to do and assume that I do, I don't hold my opinion above anyone else's. After all, these videos are my perspective, unless I state otherwise, objectivity isn't normally a factor in why I review things to give my opinion on them, especially when it comes to something as so subjective as comedy. Maybe you guys find the manspreading joke segment to be hilarious. Good for you! Back to the actual review itself. Even with the mansplaining joke or the gag with Johnny Depp, I'm willing to give some leeway due to the amount of time that it had to go through into the animation, especially when you consider how much time is needed to produce quality animation. And I would consider this to be quality animation. I am giving them some leeway, but I'm still holding them accountable, especially with the Johnny Depp thing, because they could have easily edited that. Still, before the show was released, there should have been something done with the Johnny Depp joke. Now you got people who are blacklisting and calling for the heads of it the creators. Throw in the fact that the actual original creator wasn't actually given a whole lot of insight into doing this.
What a load of bullshit!
Hell, he didn't even know initially they were going to do this sort of reboot. It kinda does leave a sour taste in the mouth. And by the way, just because you describe events, that doesn't mean you actually agree with what's happening. Shocking, I know. Overall, it's pretty much like any other comedy show, that you think some jokes hit and others don't. That it's just average. And that's what makes reviewing this show difficult, because I know there are some people going to think that just because of a slightly different perspective that I must automatically be wrong, or I think people who are wrong have a different perspective from me. Honestly, I think the series is in the middle. I like some of it, but I don't like other parts of it. It's not perfect, nothing ever is, and there are things that did make me do a double take. Like, remember that anime scene I brought up? Basically, the entire segment that had that was basically a gun control reference.
Studies show that owners of multiple buns feel safer from the threat of other owners of multiple buns.
But there is one thing I can say. I can see remnants of the original show in it. And I can tell there was some care and thought put into this, but at the same time, it's hard for me to give it a really good recommendation. I do recommend it if you can watch it. It's at least worth one watch for you guys to decide on your own if you think it's good. And that's really what matters, to find some joy in what you watch. In all honesty, I did have some fun watching the show. Not too many complaints, and I'm sure these complaints I had can be seen as overly subjective or not be actual complaints depending on your point of view. Like, I know some people won't be bothered by the Trump jokes. But at the same time, it depends on where you stand and how you view things. I mean, I would recommend one watch through. That's pretty much it. And like I said, I prefer a much larger cast that had a lot more variety to it. But hey, that's just me, and I'm MangaKamen, and remember to examine your fandom. Thanks for watching.
Fuck the media!